Have you ever played a game and walked away just stuck on one moment? Like maybe a choice you made, or a challenge you overcame, or even just a twist you didn't see coming?
Oh, absolutely. And those are the moments you want more of as a player, those unforgettable encounters.
That's exactly what we're going to deep dive into today, specifically how to make those unforgettable encounters in tabletop RPGs.
And we're going to be taking inspiration from a really cool article by Paul Bello over at LitRPG Reads.
So recently, I was in a game where we were negotiating with some bandits, and they had captured this local lord.
Ooh, hostage situation.
It was. And it got really intense. There was a lot of bluffing threats, even a little humor sprinkled in.
Oh,
It was one of those edge-of-your-seat moments that I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
And that's what every game master wants, right? To create moments that players will still be talking about weeks or even months later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the article brings up some really good points about what makes an encounter unforgettable. And I think a great place to start is tension.
Oh yeah, tension is key. You need that sense of anticipation, whether it's a ticking clock, a looming threat, or a mystery to solve.
Because that keeps players engaged and invested.
Absolutely.
Imagine being trapped in a dungeon that's collapsing around you.
Oh, wow.
And with each passing moment, the walls are closing and debris is falling from the ceiling. The threat of being buried alive is very real.
That sounds intense.
And in that moment, every decision, every action is crucial.
Oh, for sure. The pressure to escape, to think clearly under that kind of duress, makes it a truly memorable experience for the players.
I bet. And I imagine that kind of scenario really forces players to think outside the box and work together as a team.
Absolutely.
Which is always a good thing. But tension on its own isn't quite enough.
Yeah.
We need to give players meaningful choices that really affect the story.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It can't just be about surviving the encounter. It's got to be about making decisions that matter, decisions that shape the narrative.
Exactly. Think about a quest where the players have to choose sides between two warring factions. Each faction offers its own rewards and its own consequences.
Yeah.
So the players really have to weigh their options carefully. Think about what aligning with one side or the other means in the long run.
It becomes a much more dynamic campaign when those choices have real lasting ramifications.
It gives them a sense of agency, like they're shaping the world around them through their decisions.
Exactly.
Which I think is particularly important in a collaborative storytelling environment like D&D.
Oh, for sure.
But what about those times when you want to challenge players in a more cerebral way, like make them really think?
Oh, puzzle encounters. That's a great way to engage players' minds and encourage some creative problem solving.
So instead of just swinging swords, they have to use their wits and their knowledge of the game world to figure things out.
Absolutely. And often their ability to work together as a team.
A well-designed puzzle can be just as exciting as a big battle.
Yeah.
The article mentions several types of puzzles: logic puzzles, environmental puzzles, even magical puzzles.
Oh.
I'd love to dig into how those can be implemented in a way that's both challenging and fun for players.
Okay.
Like, what about environmental puzzles? How do you use the setting itself to create those challenges?
Okay, so imagine the players need to get into this hidden chamber, and it's sealed with all these intricate locks.
Okay.
But these aren't locks they can just pick or bash open.
Right.
They're connected to the environment itself. Like maybe there's a sequence of levers they have to pull in the right order, or a series of pressure plates they need to activate, or even celestial bodies that need to be aligned in a specific way.
Wow. So it becomes about figuring out the clues that are hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. It's about understanding how the environment works and how to manipulate it to solve the puzzle.
I love that. It's not just a riddle on a piece of paper. It's interactive.
Absolutely.
It makes the world feel more real. And that leads us to another key element of those unforgettable encounters: unique mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's special rules, environmental hazards, anything that makes an encounter stand out from the usual routine.
Right.
Paul Bello, in his article, he brings up the idea of multi-phase battles.
Okay.
So you have a boss fight, but the enemy evolves over time, changing their tactics as the fight goes on, forcing the players to adapt.
Oh, that's so cool.
Like, let's say the players are fighting a powerful sorcerer. In the first phase of the battle, they're blasting the party with spells, fireballs, lightning bolts, keeping them at a distance.
Right.
But as the sorcerer takes damage, they get desperate. They start summoning illusions, teleporting around the battlefield, creating these phantom copies of themselves.
Ooh, so now the players have to figure out which one is the real sorcerer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
all while dodging attacks from these illusions.
That sounds like a real challenge.
It's not just about hitting the enemy until it falls down. It's about understanding their patterns, adapting to their changes, working together as a team to survive.
Right.
Which makes it way more memorable than just another slugfest.
Absolutely.
But we've been talking a lot about combat encounters. What about those non-combat moments?
Yeah.
The exploration, the social interactions, the discovery. How do we make those just as engaging and memorable?
That's a really good point. Non-combat encounters are where you can really bring out the depth of the campaign.
I agree.
And for social encounters, it all comes down to creating interesting and believable non-player characters.
And PCs.
They shouldn't just be quest givers or walking information booths.
Right.
They should have their own motivations, their own secrets, and their own connections to the larger story.
So instead of just a generic shopkeeper who sells you supplies,
Yeah.
you might encounter a retired adventurer with a secret stash of magic items.
Exactly. Or a seemingly harmless innkeeper who's actually a spy for a powerful organization.
That's much more interesting.
It is. Giving NPCs that depth and complexity makes the world feel more alive and unpredictable.
Okay, so for example, the players meet this charming traveling merchant who's offering all sorts of rare and valuable goods.
Okay.
But as they interact with him, they might realize he's actually a con artist, really good at persuasion. Or maybe he's part of a secret society with its own agenda.
Interesting.
It adds layers of intrigue, deception, unexpected twists.
It does.
Yeah.
And suddenly a simple encounter becomes just as memorable as a big battle.
And it also brings us back to player choice. How they choose to interact with that merchant could have ripple effects throughout the entire campaign.
Right.
Do they trust him? Try to expose him? Maybe even join forces with him?
Oh, wow.
It's about creating a world that reacts to their decisions. A world where their choices actually matter.
Exactly.
And what about exploration encounters? Those moments of venturing into the unknown, uncovering hidden secrets, navigating dangerous terrain.
Oh, exploration. That's where the real sense of discovery comes in.
It's about immersing players in a world that feels vast and mysterious, full of possibility.
Exactly.
One way to make those exploration encounters more exciting is to incorporate things like dynamic weather effects,
Oh, yes.
hidden dangers, unexpected events.
Right.
Like imagine the party is trekking through a dense forest when this sudden downpour hits. The terrain becomes a muddy mess.
Oh.
Maybe there are flash floods, falling trees, creatures that come out in the rain.
Oh, wow.
It adds a layer of challenge and realism to the journey.
It does.
And it keeps the players on their toes because you never know what's going to happen next.
That's true.
It's not just about walking from point A to point B. It's about overcoming obstacles, adapting to changing circumstances.
And of course, discovering hidden secrets along the way.
We've covered a lot, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface of creating these unforgettable encounters.
Oh, for sure.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah, like how to incorporate player backstories and how to create moments with real emotional impact.
We'll dive into all of that and more in the next part of our deep dive into crafting unforgettable encounters.
I can't wait. We've talked about making encounters memorable, but I think we need to talk about how to give them real emotional depth.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We can throw puzzles and battles at our players, but it's the moments that really hit them emotionally that they'll remember.
Exactly. Think about it. What sticks with you more? Beating some random monster or a choice that has huge consequences for a character you really care about?
Right. It's those moments that turn a game into something truly special.
And that's what we want to create as game masters. Those emotionally resonant experiences.
So how do we do that? How do we inject that emotional depth into our encounters?
One of the best ways is to use the players' backstories.
Okay.
Remember all those details they gave us about their characters' pasts? Their motivations, their relationships, their triumphs, their tragedies.
Right.
We can weave those stories into the campaign, creating encounters that are deeply personal.
So it's not just telling a story, it's integrating the player's own stories into the narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine a player whose character is dedicated to fighting injustice, and then they're faced with this impossible moral dilemma.
Okay.
Like they have to choose between upholding their principles and saving someone they love.
Well,
Or maybe they discover that a mentor they looked up to has been corrupted by power.
that would be tough.
It forces them to confront their character's deepest values, and the choices they make have real weight.
And those emotionally charged moments don't have to be about life or death decisions.
No, not at all. Sometimes the quiet moments are the ones that hit the hardest.
Can you give me an example? I'm curious to see how that works.
Sure. Let's say the party is traveling through a region devastated by war.
Okay.
They come across a village that's been completely destroyed. Buildings are in ruins. The fields are empty. The few villagers who are left are struggling to survive.
That's a powerful image.
There's no immediate danger, no enemy to fight, just this overwhelming sense of loss and the impact of conflict.
It makes them think about the consequences of their actions and how those consequences can ripple outward.
And speaking of consequences, don't be afraid to let bad things happen in your games.
Okay.
Sometimes a tragic loss or a bittersweet victory can be more memorable than a straightforward win.
I can see that. But it's a bold move to introduce tragedy into a game. That's supposed to be fun.
It is. It's a delicate balance. The key is to make sure those tragic events are meaningful.
Okay.
They should challenge the players, make them confront difficult emotions, and ultimately help their characters grow.
So it's not about making the players miserable. It's about using those difficult experiences to tell a more impactful story.
Exactly. Life isn't always about happy endings. It's about the struggles, the losses, the things that shape us. And we can bring those elements into our games.
It makes the world feel more real, more relatable.
Right. And we've talked a lot about the darker emotions, but what about the positive ones? The joy, the exhilaration, the triumph.
Those are important too.
Absolutely. It's about finding the balance, the ebb and flow of emotions that make a story great.
So it's not about avoiding the negative or focusing only on the positive. It's about reflecting the complexity of life.
Exactly. Think about those moments in stories that make you cheer or laugh or pump your fist. The hero overcoming impossible odds. The long-lost lovers reunited. The underdog winning against all expectations.
Those are the moments we crave as players.
And as game masters, we can create those moments, but they have to feel authentic.
Right, they can't feel forced or contrived.
Exactly. It's about understanding your players, their characters, what drives them, what are their dreams, their aspirations. When you weave those things into the story and give them a chance to achieve their goals, that's when those moments of triumph feel real.
It's about making sure those moments of joy and accomplishment are part of the character's journey.
Right, and it's about sharing those moments with your players, creating a shared experience of excitement and camaraderie.
Celebrating those victories together.
Exactly, because that's what makes tabletop RPGs so special.
It's about creating memories that everyone will cherish.
And when you do that, when you create those moments of shared joy and connection, you elevate the game to something truly extraordinary.
We've covered a lot of emotional territory here, from tension and anticipation to sorrow and loss, from joy and exhilaration to those quiet moments of reflection.
And we've talked about some really powerful techniques for adding emotional depth, but there's one crucial element that ties it all together: player agency.
Oh yeah, that feeling that their choices actually matter.
We can create amazing scenarios, compelling NPCs, emotionally charged situations, but if the players don't feel like their decisions have an impact, it all falls apart.
We've built this amazing world, filled it with interesting characters and challenging encounters, but we have to let the players take the reins.
Exactly. We can't just force them down a predetermined path.
Right. We need to give them choices that have real consequences. Choices that change the story in meaningful ways.
So how do we make sure that happens? How do we give players that sense of agency, that feeling that their decisions actually matter?
I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
It all starts with giving them meaningful options.
Right.
And I don't mean simple choices like attack or run or open the door or close it.
Right.
It has to be more than that.
It does.
We need to present them with dilemmas that make them think about their character's values. Dilemmas where the consequences are complicated and there might not be a right answer.
So it's not just about tactics, it's about moral and ethical considerations.
Exactly. Imagine the party is tasked with delivering a valuable artifact to a powerful ruler.
Okay.
But along the way, they discover that the artifact is cursed.
Ooh.
And if it falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy the kingdom.
That's a tough one.
Do they complete their mission and risk unleashing this terrible evil?
Right.
Or do they betray their patron and try to find another way to deal with the artifact?
Wow, that's a great example of a dilemma that goes beyond simple strategy.
It forces them to think about the bigger picture, about the potential consequences of their actions.
And it makes their choice really matter.
Because no matter what they decide, it's going to have a lasting impact on the world.
And that's where things get really interesting. Because as game masters, we have to honor those choices. Right. We have to let the consequences play out, even if it means changing our plans or taking the story in a completely new direction.
It becomes a collaboration.
It does.
We're not just telling a story anymore. We're co-creating it with the players.
Exactly. And that's what makes tabletop role-playing so special. It's a living, breathing story that changes and evolves based on the decisions the players make.
I love that idea, that the world reacts to their choices.
Yes.
It's like they're dropping a pebble in a pond and watching the ripples spread out.
It's a beautiful image.
Maybe their actions shift the balance of power between warring factions.
Right.
Maybe they spark a revolution or even alter the course of history.
It's amazing to think about.
And those choices can have unforeseen consequences too.
Of course.
Maybe a simple act of kindness inspires a villager to become a leader.
Right.
Or a reckless decision made in the heat of the moment comes back to haunt them years later.
It makes the world feel so dynamic and unpredictable.
It does. It makes it feel real.
And when players feel like their choices have that kind of impact,
Yeah.
they become more invested in the story.
They take more risks.
They surprise you with their creativity and their willingness to embrace the unknown.
And that's when the real magic happens.
I agree. It's not about following a script. It's about creating something new and unexpected together.
It's about letting go of control and trusting the players to tell their own story.
And in doing so, we create something that transcends the game itself.
It becomes a shared memory, a testament to the power of collaborative storytelling.
This has been an incredible journey, exploring the art of crafting unforgettable encounters.
We've covered a lot of ground, from tension and choice to emotional depth and player agency.
But it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn and explore.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
A huge thank you to LitRPG Reads and to Paul Bello for inspiring us with their insights.
Their work is invaluable.
And to our listeners, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
What are some of the most unforgettable encounters you've experienced in your games?
What made them so special?
What lessons have you learned about creating those moments that stay with you long after the game is over?
Share your stories in the comments below.
We can't wait to hear about your adventures.
And continue this conversation together.
Until next time, may dice rolls be ever in your favor.
And may your encounters be legendary.